So in this video, we're going to talk about troubleshooting the actual copy process from your iTunes library over to Dapper. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually quit Dapper and I'm going to run it again. And one thing that I want to first bring up is you'll notice in this particular case, playlists to sync is 0. There's nothing actually to sync. So the first thing we want you to do is make sure that if you go to iTunes, you actually have playlists that start with the word Dapper. I have none here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this one here with Dapper Music. And let's go to most recently added. And then make this Dapper recently added. So we want you to make sure that you do that. And then what you'll find is that when you run Dapper, it will find that you have 2 playlists to sync. So that's the first thing. Make sure you have playlists that have the word Dapper in them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this X5. And because this was looking for X5 TF1 and X5 TF2, the disk names, this thing will come on, it will mount those disks, and we will start a copy. And what I'm going to do is to monitor this copy to see how things are going. Obviously, you're going to see displayed on the screen as it copies files. But one very handy thing is to go to Applications, to Utilities, and into Console. And here what you can do is you can actually filter on Dapper. And I'm going to go ahead and clear the display. And now when I'm in Dapper here, what I'm going to do is click on Go. It's going to scan the storage, scan the devices, and then you'll see it actually copying. So I'm going to move this. In fact, what I'm going to do is I am going to minimize this, and we'll actually watch things happen here. So it's checking, it's looking at the TF2 disk, and as it gets closer here, 5 seconds to go, it's going to tell me what it's going to copy, and I'm going to click on Continue. So now it's copying, and I can see that it's got to update 10 items on TF2 and 40 items on TF1. And as it copies, it's going to update and tell me what's going on. So I can see here that it's copying things over, and I can also see the speed in megabits per second that it's taking to copy those things. Now, on this DAP here, I'm actually going to press a button. And that's one of the problems with the X5s and some of these other DAPs, is that if you press buttons on them, if you bump them, if you disturb them, bad things can happen. It can disconnect automatically. So what I'm going to do is hit a couple of buttons. And so what's happened is just by touching buttons and by bumping this thing, I've made it disconnect. And you'll see that OS X is warning me, disk not ejected properly. It's giving me some warnings there that I can see. I also see the same sorts of things in this log. So if you're not sure what happens, you can always go to the log. I'm going to tell this, it says there's been lots of errors. I'm going to actually stop. It says errors occurred while copying, and I can click on Show Me. And now, if things are copying over fine, one of the things you'll be able to see is how many megabits per second it's taking to copy things over. And essentially, this copy is happening over USB. You will notice that it is anywhere between, for larger files, anywhere between 1.5 megs up to 5 megs is typically what you'll see out of an X5. So keep an eye on that speed. If the speed is consistently low, so these are very small files, these folder.jpg, so they're going to go relatively slowly. But if you see on big files that you're getting consistently so slow speeds, that might be because of your USB. But we also introduced errors here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here to Dapper, and you'll see that on this first error, I got a device not configured error. Sometimes you'll also get a device IO error. And so what happened was this disk was disconnected, and in future copies that it tried, it couldn't complete because there was no such file or directory. The disk was no longer mounted, there was no such directory to copy to. And so all of these errors essentially happened because of the very first error where files were disconnected. So go ahead and look at the very first error that you have with copying, and if it's something like IO error or device not configured error, then you know that your DAP got disconnected. Now, the upside is that Dapper remembers where it was, and if I go ahead and connect this drive again, it will find the device. The drives will then go ahead and mount. Here's another error. If a drive gets disconnected, you might see this zombie error. And if I click on Show Me the Volumes button, you'll see that there's 2 X5 TF1s here. So what I'm going to do is actually eject my DAP, and delete this, what we call it a zombie drive. I'm going to go ahead and delete this thing because it was a remnant of the device being disconnected improperly. Now if I go ahead and connect it back again, it's going to show up here, X5TF1, X5TF2. This is going to check the next time this little light flashes, and now we have the go button. And Dapper is smart enough to know that because there were errors, it's going to have to go ahead and scan the storage on the digital audio player. It's going to see what files were successfully copied and which weren't successfully copied, and it will in fact start the copy again and resume. So you don't lose any place of where you were, but the things to watch out for is make sure that there are no errors because your DAP is being disconnected or your DAP is going to sleep or some other thing like that. And remember that Dapper will simply pick up where it left off and manage to copy the stuff successfully.